Welcome to the Unmuted Podcast. My name is Jeff. I'm the host of the podcast and also the founder of ScaleHR. And we talk about all things HR, tech, world of work, AI, and lots more. And so all of our episodes live on our website at GoScaleHR.com and on YouTube as well. And so we try to drop new episodes every Thursday, and we have different guests from different parts of the HR world. So this is a really interesting topic, as they all are. Why most AI strategies fail, and then how to make yours succeed. So that's a pretty straightforward topic, and we have a fantastic guest here, and I'm going to bring her in shortly. But I just want to just make a couple of points first. So obviously, AI, has been a really big, part of our world for the last couple of years. So the first point is this: the AI gold rush and the graveyard of failed strategies. So what does that mean? So it basically means the AI adoption in business is actually skyrocketing, and so across all business functions. But so is a number of initiatives that start and stall and fail. And so despite the hype, most organizations are still struggling to turn their AI investment into real outcomes. That's a huge problem. And I'm not shocked by that. And so I think the second point that I want to make to set the context here, it's not so much the technology, it's the actual approach. And so what that means is time and time again, we see the same pattern. Companies chasing shiny new tools, and they don't really have any clear purpose, and they're always overlooking the human or the org side of adoption. And so this was a very, very constant point that plagued my HR background and career. It's the same thing. People are going straight to the tool, and they're forgetting about the actual business side of things. And so today we're going to unpack, why most of the AI strategies fail, and more importantly, how to make yours not fail, but to do well. And so there is a lot to talk about, and I want to bring in our guest, who is a relatively newer connection of mine, but we started working together, and she's awesome. Limor Markman, welcome to the Unmuted Podcast.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to have this conversation because, as you said, AI is well underway. It's here to stay. And most companies are struggling to figure out what the heck to do, how to make it work for them, how to integrate it. So I'm really excited for our conversation today.
I think both of us are actually on the same page. So when I first talked to you and then met with you way back when, obviously had a conversation about AI, but more broadly technology, and then the constant problems that most organizations are having more from an HR perspective as to why they can't figure this out. And less to do with the actual technology and more to do with the other stuff. And so we'll get into that now. And so before we dive into our conversation about this, maybe you can give our audience a bit of a background as to what you do, who you are, where you're from, all of that good stuff.
Absolutely, of course. So my name is Limor Markman, as Jeff said. I run an AI agency called Ascent, and we are a full-scale agency, and we help organizations of various sizes really start from the beginning with AI, how to craft a proper plan and a strategy, how to figure out what's happening in the marketplace, what solutions they want to solve, what the technology integration is going to look like, how they're going to be training their employees, all the way through supporting the execution of those various elements. So we do a lot of training for teams of number of sizes on how each individual employee and collectively as a team, they can use AI and some of the functionality like the chat GPTs of the world, all the way through. We have a development team that builds a lot of the technical aspects, the custom solutions, things from chatbots, voice callers, all kinds of very complicated things. So we go right from the very beginning of, I don't know what to do with AI. We need to do something, all the way through to integration from both a human and a technical standpoint.
And they build chatbots that don't frustrate you. Okay. And I'm just going to put that out there.
Yes, we try to enhance the customer experience. That's for sure.
That's what it's all about. Okay. So first question for you. I think this is a pretty obvious question, but what are some of the most common mistakes organizations make when building or rolling out an AI strategy?
Yeah, great question. And I see these all too often. And there's a number of different things, and you may or may not be surprised at what they are. But the first mistake that I see organizations make is do nothing. It feels really overwhelming. They don't know where to begin. And so it's like, hey, we'll revisit this next quarter, next quarter, next quarter. And before they know it, they might be out of business because other companies are stepping in. So that's the first thing that I see. As part of that, the second mistake that I see organizations making is that maybe they get into some of the technical purchases of technology, but they don't have a proper strategy. So going out and investing many of your dollars in technology that's intended to support you, take over certain functions in your organizations, make things easier. Just doing the technology alone is a big challenge because we're at a place where every employee in some way, shape, or form is actually touching that technology. So if you are solely focused on the buys and not training your people on how to do even the small tasks, like every email account now has an AI functionality, every AI note taker, like all of the little things that employees are doing on day to day can be done better and faster with the support of AI. But if you just are focused on, I need to buy this big thing that's going to overhaul the way we function, you're actually missing the boat. And then the last piece of a mistake that I see all the time, which is kind of tied to numerous of these come together, is not having a vision that includes taking baby steps. Because I want to say in the working world these days, this is probably the biggest evolution, transformation, change in how we do things. And it's going to take some time for you and your organization to be able to get up to speed, to be doing things on another level. And it's really important that even if the leadership team initially is not as comfortable with how to do this, creating a plan, I often refer to it as sort of like crawl, then walk, then run on AI integration. You're just kind of haphazardly building a Frankenstein rather than saying, here's where we are today. Here's where we want to be in the future, even though that's going to change and evolve because AI is changing and evolving every single day. But then taking steps cohesively on both the human front and the tech front to get you there.
So what you just talked about is the core problem that I've been seeing for the last 10, 15 years anyway, when it comes to technology and sort of broader HR. Okay. But what we're seeing now is this AI thing. It's massively huge, right? So, and there's such a huge impact on what it can do for you. I think by taking this the wrong approach is actually making the problem worse, way worse, right? So back in the day, say you purchased the wrong piece of software and you didn't do any change management. Well, I mean, I didn't really touch many people, so you can just, swap it out and just try again. But now you're asking an entire company in all of our employees, all of our customers, everything to change. That's huge. And so I just wanted to get into my next question is really, and you kind of already talked about this, but how important is it having a clearly defined problem or goal before investing in AI? And why do so many companies skip this part?
So I love that you asked that question, and it's absolutely true. And I think never have we seen shinier objects for people to purchase, to invest in, to integrate when it comes to, hey, all of a sudden you can say one sentence and your whole marketing campaign is completed for you with avatars and videos and special effects and all that kind of good stuff. So the shiny objects, I think, are shinier than ever. And I think it's even more important to figure out, why are you doing what it is that you're doing? Why are you moving forward with this piece of technology? What challenge are we solving for? And especially with all of the different functionality and skills and problems that AI can solve for, you could be having a sit down at your organization and looking at all the challenges across all the various departments, and AI can play a role in solving many of them. So I think sometimes it's like, who's got the biggest budget? Who's got the shiniest objects? Rather than saying and asking yourselves collectively as a leadership team two questions. That is, what can we do with AI today that we haven't been able to do before? And secondly, what can we do that we do already, but much better with AI? And I think when you start with those questions and you're able to identify what are the top priorities for the business to solve for, rather than saying, hey, what's like the coolest thing? And, I don't think any leadership team sits down and says, oh, what's the coolest thing we can do? But sometimes those opportunities are presented to you. You should be looking at strategically, and it's more important than ever to ask, what is this AI solution solving for? Where is it moving us towards? But at the same time, of course, you and I both understand why piecemeal or exciting pieces of technology sometimes get integrated first.
Well, I always sort of say, look, I mean, if you look at a piece of software and you haven't thought out clearly and carefully what your core needs are and what your challenges are and what your goals are, then you might as well just, put a blindfold on and just walk into a dark room and, try to throw darts at a bullseye. What's
Oh,
going to happen?
totally.
It's not, going to work, right? So anything that is even more true here. So, just shifting gears, just a little bit. So, AI is often, or technology anyway, is often framed as a tech challenge. So, obviously, like AI is all about technology. But how much of our success or failure comes down to change management and a workplace culture?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think AI, and we're talking about it in the broadest sense here in this
Sure.
conversation, touches everyone in the organization in some way, shape, or form. And so, if you're talking about, hey, we are bringing in a piece of technology that's powered by AI that's going to run, our back end or our execution or something completely different, then it would be kind of feasible to just say, hey, it's an isolated component element, but that's just not how it works. And AI and its broadest way actually impacts everybody in every department. So again, if you may be starting with the simplest thing where, a lot of employees are now doing functions of their jobs their own way without any training, however they think makes sense. If you don't have a broader change management approach as to how we all conduct ourselves and how we use AI to support our business and help us achieve our business goals, you're kind of missing the boat. So I think it's one of the first times on this scale that technology has changed this dramatically, this quickly, impacting everybody. And I think change management is a really big piece of it. I see too many organizations that don't truly believe that training their people on AI is an important initiative, when in reality they are the most important, because they're the ones
100%.
who are conducting your business. So it's definitely a new coming together of how you think about people and how you think about technology.
It's really interesting because I've had many conversations with HR leaders who are actually going through this journey right now. And so one of the most common, I guess, comments, that I've gotten from them is they've had to rethink how they structure their team, HR team, because when you have, for example, say you take like an HR manager role, 30% of what they used to do, or more, can now be taken over by some sort of like AI tool or platform. And that's a good thing. But that is a massive, massive shift in how people think about their jobs in the world. And it's not that it's coming for your job, because I told people over and over again, I think you've said it probably more than I have, AI is not going to actually wipe out all of our jobs. That's not happening. It's just what it's doing right now, which is shifting how we approach our work. And I think that's the biggest thing. So if we are making such a huge impact to our roles and jobs that are done by people, obviously need to have a really heavy focus on people. Right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So people always ask me, yeah, okay, so Jeff, you talked about the problem, you talked about what's not right, what you should do, blah blah blah. But let's get it to the actual, how do I do something? So if a company wants to get AI right, okay, so say they're sort of going down this journey, they haven't
Yep.
started yet. What are the first three actions they should probably take before signing any contract or buying tool?
Yeah, of course. So I think the first thing that you need to do is get together as a leadership team, whether that's within HR or it's across department, to really take a look at what is happening in the marketplace, see what your competitors are doing. I often use an adoption framework where you can identify, on a scale of 1 to 5 with these 5 different markers, where are you today and where would you like to be? 99% of the time people are at phase 0 or phase 1, so you're not going to accidentally stumble into being farther along, but it's about acknowledging to collectively as a team what's in the marketplace and where are you today. Then it's really critical to craft a plan that takes you to the vision of where you want to go. And I usually suggest, an 18 months trajectory of where you're headed, and recognize that this is going to be a combination of steps you're going to take to support your people who are going to be using AI, whether they've been using it on the side on their phone because you haven't allowed them to do it on their computer, side note, or it's going to be the technology pieces. So step number 1 is really come together, see what's happening in the marketplace, and acknowledge where you actually are. Step number 2 is about creating a proper vision and strategy of where you're going to be going. And then step number 3 is really ensuring that the actions you have set out in front of you have both a combination of training and support for your people who are going to be touching the various facets of AI, in addition to all of the technology that you're intending to sign and purchase to be able to have these magical solutions come into play. So I think you and I have talked about some of the mistakes and really where companies are jumping into purchasing the technology. But until you take that step back with all the right key players and have both a plan for the people and the technology aspect, you're not setting yourself up for success.
Right. So all of these things need to be done first, prior to delving into demos and all of that kind of stuff, and sort of seeking out to what type of tools are out there.
Absolutely.
So that's a good segue into my last question, which is this: if our viewers can learn just one thing about anything that you've talked about today, so what is that one thing?
I would say if they had to take away one thing, it would be that it's never been more important to have a strategy and a vision to make sure that the steps that you're taking, whether that's buying a piece of technology or otherwise, are in proper alignment with where you see yourself going. Because as you mentioned at the start of our conversation here, too many times someone has started down a pathway, purchased some technology, and it's not allowing them to achieve the outcomes and the goals that maybe they thought they were looking to achieve, because you haven't taken a big enough step back at what that vision and bigger direction is.
I really appreciate you being here. So obviously people can check you out. And I'm going to drop a link in the screen here, actually. And this is to your training and workshop page, right? And so you recently launched that, so maybe tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so it actually was born out of necessity. We had a lot of organizations that we were working with or that were reaching out for tools, but then starting to ask the questions. And we realized, and we have 2 different kinds of workshops that we facilitate for groups of leaders, whether that's your executive team or inside of a specific department. And during that session, we pull together what the marketplace is doing in your industry. We teach you the adoption framework, help you identify where you are, and ultimately creating and crafting a plan for a crawl, walk, run so that your organization can achieve what you're looking to do with the support of AI.
Limor Markman, thank you very much for being here. Once again, everyone, I'm Jeff Waldman, the host of the Podcast, and all of our podcasts live on our YouTube channel and on our website at GoScaleHR.com. So we talk about all things work, HR tech, AI, of course, hiring, I guess, firing too, other things too. So thank you very much for being here.